Imagine a world without the roar, a silence where millions once gathered, breath held, hearts pounding in unison, awaiting a singular moment of triumph or despair. Consider the vast, empty spaces where colossal arenas now stand, silent monuments to a passion that never ignited. What if the simple act of kicking a ball, a seemingly innocuous pastime, had never evolved into the global phenomenon known as football? This is not merely a question of sport, it is an inquiry into the very fabric of modern society, a speculative journey into an alternate history where the world's most popular game simply ceased to exist, or perhaps never even began. For generations, the rhythmic thud of a ball, the collective gasp of a crowd, and the electrifying surge of a goal have woven themselves into the tapestry of human existence, shaping economies, forging identities, and even influencing geopolitical landscapes. From the bustling marketplaces of Lagos to the snow-dusted pitches of Siberia, from the grand stadiums of Brazil to the humble playgrounds of England, football has transcended mere recreation, becoming a universal language spoken by billions. It has served as a crucible for national pride, a bomb for social divisions, and a relentless engine of dreams for countless individuals. But what if this powerful, pervasive force had been conspicuously absent from the narrative of the last century and beyond? The implications ripple outward, far beyond the confines of a playing field. Without football, would the sprawling multi-billion-dollar industries that have grown around it, media conglomerates, sportswear giants, travel and hospitality sectors, have found alternative avenues for their immense capital and human ingenuity? Would the architectural marvels that are modern stadiums, often the largest structures in their respective cities, have ever been conceived? Think of the intricate web of global commerce and cultural exchange that football has fostered, the shared moments of jubilation and heartbreak that have united disparate peoples across continents. Its absence would not just leave a void, it would fundamentally alter the development paths of entire nations and continents. This journey of inquiry delves into the profound absence, exploring the spaces it would leave in our collective consciousness, and the ways in which human endeavor might have been redirected. We are not merely contemplating a world without a game, we are examining the very nature of human connection, competition, and the search for collective meaning. Would other sports have risen to fill the void, perhaps rugby, basketball, or even more esoteric pursuits, achieving a similar global ubiquity? Or would the fundamental need for mass spectacle and shared passion have manifested in entirely different forms, perhaps in the arts, in political movements, or in technological races? The question of what if football was never invented forces us to confront the often unseen ways in which culture shapes destiny. It challenges us to consider how national identities might have coalesced differently, how international relations might have unfolded without the shared rivalry and camaraderie of the beautiful game. The world we inhabit today, with its specific heroes, its particular triumphs, and its unique forms of collective expression, has been subtly yet powerfully shaped by the presence of football. To imagine its non-existence is to imagine an entirely different world, one whose contours are both unfamiliar and profoundly intriguing. A world where the very pulse of humanity might beat to a different rhythm, driven by different passions, and defined by a distinct set of global narratives. The silence where cheers once echoed would extend far beyond the grand arenas, permeating the very fabric of daily life. Consider, for instance, the evolution of individual aspirations. In countless communities across the globe, the prospect of kicking a ball, of mastering its unpredictable bounce, has offered a tangible, albeit challenging, pathway to distinction. Without this avenue, what alternative dreams would have captivated the youth? Would a greater emphasis be placed on academic pursuits, artistic expression, or perhaps other, less formalized forms of physical prowess? The absence of football might redirect immense human potential, channeling youthful energy and ambition into entirely different fields, fostering a generation of brilliant scientists, innovative engineers, or profound artists, whose talents might otherwise have been eclipsed by the allure of the pitch. Furthermore, the communal rhythms of life would undoubtedly shift. Think of the weekend rituals, the shared anticipation and collective release of tension that football provides. In its stead, how would families and friends choose to spend their leisure hours? Perhaps local parks, devoid of marked pitches and impromptu games, would transform into havens for quieter recreation picnics, contemplative walks, or the spontaneous gathering of musicians. Community centers, typically buzzing with youth league activity, might instead become hubs for board game tournaments, theatrical workshops, or collaborative volunteer projects. the very architecture of urban planning could have diverged significantly. With less emphasis on large open fields and more on intricate public gardens, pedestrian-friendly thoroughfares, or decentralized recreational facilities catering to a broader array of less competitive pastimes, the emotional landscape of society would also undergo a profound reorientation. The collective highs and lows, the cathartic release of shared triumph, or the unifying sting of defeat, would need alternative outlets. Would civic engagement intensify, with local issues becoming the primary focus for passionate debate and collective action? Or might cultural events, such as music festivals, dance performances, or theatrical productions, assume a heightened significance, providing communal experiences of emotional intensity and shared identity? The human need for belonging, for shared stories, and for moments of intense, unifying emotion is fundamental. Without the structured drama of football, these intrinsic desires would inevitably find expression elsewhere, perhaps in a proliferation of local clubs dedicated to obscure hobbies, or in the resurgence of traditional storytelling events that bind communities together through narrative. Moreover, the very nature of public discourse and media consumption would be strikingly different. Imagine a broadcasting landscape where primetime schedules are not punctuated by live matches or sports analysis shows. News cycles might delve deeper into political intricacies, scientific breakthroughs, or social commentary. Entertainment channels might invest more heavily in scripted dramas, innovative reality programming, or documentary series exploring diverse facets of human experience. The vacuum left by football's pervasive presence would compel media creators to innovate in unforeseen ways, shaping a different form of collective attention and public conversation. Consequently, the cultural touchstones defining generations might derive from entirely different sources, perhaps from literary movements, groundbreaking scientific discoveries, or influential philosophical debates, rather than from sporting legends and their memorable feats. Consider, too, the informal social structures that football fosters, the camaraderie forged on a local team, the intergenerational bonds formed through supporting a shared club, the casual conversations ignited by a recent game. These everyday interactions contribute significantly to social cohesion. Without them, how would these connections be cultivated? Perhaps neighborhood associations would gain prominence, or perhaps an increased focus on local history and heritage would create new focal points for community identity. The absence of football forces us to envision a society where the spontaneous, informal mechanisms of human connection are cultivated through different means, leading to a subtly altered rhythm of social interaction and communal life, where shared passions might be more fragmented, yet perhaps also more diverse. This alternative reality compels us to ponder the fundamental human need for collective endeavor and the myriad ways it can manifest. The geopolitical landscape, for instance, would present a dramatically altered tableau. Without the World Cup, that colossal quadrennial gathering of nations, a significant platform for global interaction and, occasionally, for the easing of diplomatic tensions, would simply vanish. Consider the numerous instances where sporting encounters, however competitive, have provided a neutral ground for dialogue or a shared experience to bridge political divides. In this alternate reality, nations would lack that powerful, universally understood language of the beautiful game, to articulate their soft power or project their cultural influence on a grand scale. The intricate dance of international relations, devoid of these high-stakes globally televised contests, might have sought different, perhaps more formal or less emotionally resonant, avenues for engagement and rivalry. Furthermore, the very fabric of national identity, particularly in newly independent states or those grappling with post-conflict reconstruction, would have been woven differently. Football has often served as a potent, unifying symbol, a source of collective pride, and a narrative through which a populace could rally, celebrating shared triumphs and enduring communal setbacks. Without the common cause of supporting a national team, or the passionate rivalries against neighboring countries played out on the pitch, how would these nascent or fractured identities have solidified? One might observe a heightened emphasis on historical narratives, artistic movements, or perhaps even military prowess as primary expressions of national spirit, leading to a potentially more insular or even more confrontational global environment, lacking the shared ritualistic competition that football provides. Shifting focus, the pathways to social mobility, particularly for those from disadvantaged backgrounds, would exhibit a profound rerouting. For countless individuals across continents, The ability to skillfully control a ball has represented a singular, often life-changing, escape from poverty and obscurity. This unique meritocracy, where raw talent, discipline, and perseverance on the pitch could translate into global recognition and financial security, would cease to exist. Imagine the myriad young lives, once driven by the dream of becoming a professional footballer, now compelled to seek alternative avenues for advancement. Their formidable athleticism, strategic thinking, and competitive drive, once honed on dusty fields, would need to find entirely different outlets. Consequently, the socio-economic structures in many developing nations, where football academies often serve as informal, educational and vocational centers, would be fundamentally reshaped. Without the economic incentive and global visibility offered by the sport, investment in these areas might diminish, or be redirected towards more traditional educational and vocational training programs. This could, in turn, foster a different kind of societal aspiration, perhaps elevating the status of academic achievement, entrepreneurial innovation, or even the mastery of skilled trades, as the primary means of upward progression. The cultural heroes celebrated in these communities might no longer be the dazzling striker or the impenetrable defender, but rather the pioneering engineer, the celebrated physician, or the innovative artist, thereby subtly altering the collective values and ambitions passed down through generations. The individual psychological landscapes would also reflect this void. For many, the structured competition and physical demands of football provide not just recreation but a vital outlet for aggression, a crucible for resilience, and a powerful sense of belonging within a team. Without this widely accessible means of physical and emotional expression, where would these intrinsic human needs for competition and camaraderie be channeled? Perhaps an increased participation in individual sports requiring immense self-discipline, like long-distance running or martial arts, would emerge. Alternatively, the collective energies might be diverted into more intellectual pursuits such as chess clubs, debate societies, or scientific competitions, fostering a different kind of mental agility and strategic thinking across the populace. This profound shift suggests a world where the very definition of a hero and the pathways to personal triumph are distinctly redefined, shaping a human experience that is both familiar in its underlying drives, yet remarkably different in its outward manifestations. The absence of football would undeniably reshape the very contours of our built environments. Consider the sprawling urban landscapes where colossal stadiums now anchor neighborhoods, often dictating the flow of traffic, the placement of public transportation hubs, and the concentration of commercial activity. In a world without the game, these monumental structures would simply not exist. Instead, city planners might have prioritized extensive green spaces dedicated to botanical gardens, sprawling public art installations, or perhaps intricate networks of cycling paths and pedestrian promenades, fostering a different kind of urban leisure and community interaction. Large tracts of land, currently consumed by vast parking lots or ancillary facilities for match days, could instead be repurposed for affordable housing developments, innovative agricultural initiatives, or decentralized vocational training centers, subtly altering the demographic and economic makeup of metropolitan areas. Moreover, the vast sums of consumer expenditure currently directed towards football-related goods and services would find new avenues beyond the obvious sportswear and media contracts. Imagine the immense market for matchday tickets, team merchandise, and the associated travel and hospitality industries that blossom around major tournaments and weekly fixtures. This substantial economic energy, diverted from replica jerseys and stadium tours, might instead fuel a burgeoning market for high-tech entertainment devices, immersive virtual reality experiences, or perhaps a renaissance in live performing arts, with theaters and concert halls experiencing an unprecedented boom in attendance and investment. Retail landscapes could shift dramatically, with less emphasis on sports-themed outlets and more on specialized hobby shops, artisanal craft markets, or innovative educational products, reflecting a different collective appetite for leisure and self-improvement. A further dimension to consider lies in the evolution of popular culture and the very definition of celebrity. In our current reality, football stars transcend their athletic prowess to become global icons, their faces adorning billboards and their endorsements shaping consumer trends far beyond the pitch. Without these athletic demigods who would capture the collective imagination with such intensity, perhaps brilliant scientists, groundbreaking technologists, or visionary artists would occupy the pinnacle of global recognition. their achievements celebrated with an equivalent fervor. Advertising campaigns, stripped of their reliance on famous footballers, would be compelled to innovate, perhaps focusing on the intrinsic qualities of products, or elevating the status of intellectual prowess and creative genius as aspirational ideals. This shift could fundamentally alter the archetypes of success and aspiration presented to younger generations, fostering a society that values different forms of excellence. Conversely, the pervasive influence of football on fashion trends and subcultures would dissipate entirely. The iconic team colors, the casual sportswear aesthetic, and the very notion of a kit as a form of identity are deeply embedded in contemporary style. In this alternate timeline, what sartorial expressions would emerge to fill that void? Perhaps historical reenactment groups would gain widespread popularity, or distinct fashion movements tied to musical genres. Literary movements, or even academic disciplines would proliferate, allowing individuals to signal their affiliations through clothing in novel ways. The vibrant, often tribal, displays of fan loyalty through dress would instead manifest in more diverse and perhaps more niche forms of cultural expression, leading to a richer yet more fragmented tapestry of personal style and collective identity. The subtle, yet profound ways in which a simple game has shaped our visual culture, our economic flows, and our very definition of heroism would become glaringly apparent in its absence, revealing a world meticulously resculpted by different passions. Reflecting on this journey through a world unburdened by the ubiquitous presence of a singular global passion, one begins to grasp the profound repatterning of human existence. It is akin to imagining a vast, intricate river system where a major tributary has simply ceased to flow. The downstream landscape is not merely drier, but fundamentally resculpted, with new channels emerging, different flora taking root, and the very climate subtly altered. The void left by such a pervasive cultural force would not remain an empty chasm, rather it would compel a rechanneling of immense collective energies, redirecting the currents of ambition, leisure, and national identity into unforeseen estuaries. The inherent human need for shared spectacle, for heroes who embody collective aspirations, and for the cathartic release of communal emotion would undoubtedly manifest in novel forms. This redirection of a primal societal impulse would shape different avenues for public engagement and private satisfaction, fostering alternative forms of camaraderie and competition. Imagine the subtle shifts in daily rhythms, the of communal spaces, and the emergence of entirely different focal points for local pride and global attention. What might have been built for mass gatherings could instead serve more intimate, diverse forms of assembly, reflecting a different philosophy of urban planning and public interaction. The colossal economic currents that once flowed into a particular sphere would find new estuaries, nurturing nascent industries and transforming existing ones. Capital, once invested in a specific form of entertainment infrastructure and its associated merchandise, would disperse, fueling innovation in distinct sectors or bolstering entirely different consumer markets. This reallocation of resources would not merely be a financial adjustment, it would ripple through labor markets, vocational training, and even the very definition of economic success for countless individuals and entire regions. The physical environment, from sprawling urban centers to rural communities, would bear witness to a different set of priorities, reflecting alternative societal values and recreational pursuits that have blossomed in the absence of a dominant global game. Beyond the tangible, the more ethereal elements of national identity and global discourse would undergo a subtle, yet profound, recalibration. The shared narratives that bind peoples, the arenas for international exchange, and the expressions of soft power would be forged in different crucibles, influencing diplomatic postures and cultural perceptions in ways we can only speculate. The absence of a universally understood language of rivalry and camaraderie would compel nations to seek other common grounds or, conversely, might lead to more pronounced divergences in their collective self-expression and interaction on the world stage. The very pantheon of celebrated figures, the archetypes of aspiration presented to successive generations, would be populated by different luminaries. Popular culture, shorn of a dominant global narrative, would branch into myriad new forms, fostering a diverse, perhaps more fragmented, landscape of shared passions and expressive outlets. This collective reimagining of what constitutes success, what inspires devotion, and what unites disparate individuals across vast distances, paints a picture of a world where the very pulse of humanity beats to a distinct rhythm. Drawing these multifaceted strands together, we discern not merely an absence, but a complete reorchestration of societal priorities and human drives, prompting a final, deeper contemplation on the essence of what truly binds us, and what forms our collective spirit might take in the absence of a pervasive, universally understood passion. Having journeyed through a world where the thud of a ball never reverberated across continents, where the roar of the crowd remained forever unheard, we emerged with a profound understanding that the human spirit, in its boundless capacity for connection and competition, would always find its expression. This speculative exercise reveals not merely the absence of a game, but the inherent adaptability of societies, the remarkable ways in which our fundamental needs for collective identity, aspiration, and release would be rechanneled into alternative, equally potent forms. The void left by football would never truly be empty. Rather, it would be filled by a myriad of other shared endeavors, each shaping a distinct cultural landscape, unique economic flows, and an entirely different pantheon of heroes. The core revelation is that humanity's deep-seated desire for belonging, for celebrating shared triumphs, and for navigating collective challenges is a constant, irrespective of the specific cultural vessel it inhabits. Without the global stage of football, the energies devoted to its creation, consumption, and celebration would simply have been diverted. Perhaps the arts would have flourished with even greater intensity, becoming the primary arena for national pride and international exchange. Scientific breakthroughs might be celebrated with the fervor currently reserved for sporting victories, elevating innovators to the status of global idols. Or perhaps, more localized, diverse forms of physical competition, intellectual pursuits, or community-based rituals would have gained prominence, leading to a richer, albeit more fragmented, tapestry of human interaction. This thought experiment compels us to look beyond the surface of our current reality and appreciate the intricate, often invisible forces that have shaped it. It underscores the profound impact of seemingly simple inventions or cultural phenomena, demonstrating how a single thread can weave itself into the entire fabric of global civilization, influencing everything from urban planning and economic development to national identity and individual dreams. The world we inhabit, with its specific heroes, its particular passions, and its distinct forms of collective expression, is not an inevitability, but one of countless possible realities, each sculpted by a unique interplay of human nature and historical contingency. Ultimately, the question of what if football was never invented transcends mere curiosity about an alternate past. It is an invitation to examine the present with fresh eyes, to recognize the powerful, almost gravitational pull of our shared cultural touchstones, and to consider how much of our lives, our aspirations, and our collective consciousness are, subtly yet profoundly, influenced by phenomena we often take for granted. It encourages us to appreciate the delicate balance of forces that define our world, and to ponder the myriad ways in which human ingenuity, competitive spirit, and the yearning for connection will always find their voice, even if the arena, the rules, and the heroes are entirely different. The true practice begins now, to discern the unseen architects of our present and to imagine the limitless possibilities of our future. Understanding that the human game of creating meaning and forging bonds will forever adapt and evolve,